request Dr. Timappa Hegde to speak on is there a meaning for suffering. Dr. Timappa Hegde is a distinguished neurosurgeon and is presently working as a director of Narayana Institute of Neurosciences, Bangalore. He finished his neurosurgery residency from National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore. He continued as a faculty as Department of Neurosurgery, NIMANS till 2003, where he was instrumental in starting stereotactic and functional neurosurgery. In 2004, he founded the Narayana Institute of Neurosciences, which has now become one of the finest centers for neurology and neurosurgery service with an excellent training program. Dr. Timappa was recognized by the Lions Club Bengaluru as an outstanding citizen and visited USA and Canada on a special exchange program from the Rotary International. He was also invited by the Vatican to speak at an international meeting at the Vatican City and had a special audience with the Pope, His Holiness John Paul II. With his keen interest in spirituality and overall personality development, Dr. Hegde has scaled new heights despite having a very busy neurosurgical practice. As you're aware, Dr. Timappa Hegde is very much associated with our Ashirwad and also interreligious program. And most of us are very much familiar with Dr. Timappa Hegde. And I now request Dr. Timappa Hegde to make his presentation. After the presentation, we will have some time for interaction to ask questions or to give your own opinion on the topic that he is presenting. Dr. Hegde, over to you.
Thank you, Father. Nice to come back to Ashirwad after a very long time. Sunday evening at this time, we normally have a prayer meeting at home, and that is why I have not been able to attend the Sunday programs at Ashirwad. Online, it is easier to join. This topic is a topic which all of us have enough inputs on, because suffering is an experience that we see not only very close to ourselves, in our own minds, in our families, and all around us. So this can be like a satsang where all of us will share our inputs on. So initially, for the first maybe 25-30 minutes, I will throw in certain ideas, but particularly from my experience as a neurosurgeon, to see how we get to see so much of human suffering. And thereafter, we can have an interaction. I have put this, is there a meaning for suffering? Now, whenever there is suffering, there is always a sense of meaninglessness as to why me, and also a question as to why is that good people suffer. This is our usual experience, that people who have been very pious, very religious, who have been leading a very simple, authentic life, go through so much of suffering. And there is a contrast also. There are the very powerful people who are evidently mean, sometimes very treacherous, very cruel, but who seem to be having a relatively good time. Is there a meaning? If there is a God who is a just God, if there is a fair God, how does a God permit all this happening? So whenever there is suffering, there is a sense of meaninglessness. This meaning can never be given to us by anybody else. We have to experience this our own self. You know, that is why I said this is a sort of a satsang where all of us will be throwing in our ideas. All of us will share how our own suffering has shaped me and made me who I am. And because whatever is meaningful for me is what is meaningful. It is not somebody else's meaning will never become meaningful for me. Very often people give an example of Chicago, which is in the northmost part of the United States on the Lake Michigan. And when the cold Canadian winds blow on a wintry day, the weather would be like this. And if there is an interreligious meeting happening there, and it is not an online meeting, but a real meeting, would such a meeting happen or will it not happen? The answer is, those who have lived in this country know that life will slow down, but it will not stop. Life will go on. Why? Because people anticipate winter and they are prepared for winter. So, why are we having such a discussion? The discussion is that we do not know when we will experience different seasons of our life. Can go through all seasons of our life. And therefore, when there is the winter of our life, see, suffering is real. Look at the emotion that this little boy is going through when he has lost something very dear to him. Children sometimes experience death and the dying for the first time in their life. This is an absolutely new experience for them, that it is possible for someone to be around them and to come in terms with the loss of that person forever. Now, that is why, as I said, we have to discover meaning. Now, when a person is going through intense grief for any reason, at that moment, any amount of counseling does not work. The person has to go through. So therefore, all these inputs work much more before the tragic episode rather than after the tragic episode itself. One thought is that, can we always be inspired? And that is what Abdul Kalam wanted us to be, inspired people. And Abdul Kalam had an important source of inspiration from Patanjali. And the source of inspiration is like this. I will read it for you. When you are inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, your mind transcends limitations, your consciousness expands in every direction, dormant forces, faculties, talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamt about. So let us see how we can see ourselves to be inspired. Gautama Buddha had something very important to say about thoughts. He says, watch your thoughts. Watch your thoughts because they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. And then he makes a landmark statement. He says, if you can change your thoughts, you can change your destiny. So when you are inspired, when you have positive thoughts, it is these thoughts can change the way you look at life, the way you can be inspired in spite of difficulties, and how you can inspire other people who are going through difficulty. Gautama Buddha had made one discovery. When he was born, his being an emperor, there were 9 astrologers in the court, and 8 of them gave a V sign to the king. And the king said, what does it mean? He says, either your son is going to become a great emperor, or he will become a bhikkhu, a beggar. The wisest person put up one finger. And the king said, what does it mean? He says, I'm absolutely certain your son is going to become a monk, a bhikkhu, a beggar in that context. The king did not want that to happen, so he insulated him from all good things until one day he saw 3 things which we normally see. He saw an old man, a sick person, and a dead body. And it occurred to him, if I'm also going to get old, if I'm going to fall sick, and if I'm going to die, what is the meaning of life? Life is meaningless. Of course, he became a monk. He went through a lot of austerity. He discovered meaning. But when Buddha discovers meaning, as I said, it's meaningful for him. Now, we should be able to derive that meaning for us. That is why it is from our own experience and our own learnings that we will be able to find meaning in suffering. This is at Auschwitz, the largest Nazi concentration and the death camp, where a great psychiatrist called Viktor Frankl was incarcerated like any one of those prisoners. He was a very successful and a very popular psychiatrist, but for the Germans, it made no difference. He was a Jew. And like any other Jew, he was put into the concentration camp. And for years, he went through the suffering that like any prisoner would go through. But watching all the fellow prisoners and being a psychiatrist, he made a certain observation. The observation was that who are the people who endured all the suffering? And those who had a very positive mindset, those who regretted what happened, withered away and died, even though they may be physically stronger, but those who had a stronger mindset. And that is why when he came out of prison, or when the war ended, he wrote this book called Man's Search for Meaning. And this laid the foundation for a new school of psychotherapy called logotherapy. Logos means meaning. What is the meaning? Why do people go through suffering? And if we are able to discover meaning, one of the things that he felt is these people can do anything to my body, they cannot do anything to me. There was a moment when they were doing a forced surgical operation as a trial experimental surgery on him. He was put on the operating table, and against his will, they were doing some experimental surgical procedure. So a realization came to him, and that realization is in some of these words. He says, they can do anything to my body, but how I relate to it, everything can be taken from a man. But one thing, the last of the human freedom, is to choose one's response to a given set of circumstances. The way I respond, that is entirely mine. And that is true freedom. And that is what he discovered through all his suffering. This is a picture of Christopher Reeve. He was a Superman, and in the year 1995, he had a Sunday morning horse riding accident. He broke his neck and he became completely paralyzed. The transition was almost instant. The person who played the role Superman now became a completely paralyzed, not able to move his hands or feet, not able to talk. And while he was going through this intense period of paralysis, he could not speak. And much later, when he could speak, the first thing he told his wife, Dana Reeve, I'm finished, I'm done. But his wife looks to him and says, Christopher, you are still you. It suddenly occurred to him, even though my body is completely crippled, I'm still the same, which means perhaps I am someone other than my body. Now, just look at this little picture that you see in the corner. This picture could represent any one of us. I want you to see a picture of yourself when you are very little, when you were a child aged about 3 years or 4 years. And my question to you is, where is that boy or the girl right now? Is that boy or girl here? Yes or no? Yes. But can you see how much changes have occurred? That means that my body has undergone so much of changes, but there is some life force within the body, which is the real me, which has not undergone any change. So the more I understand that there is someone in me which is other than my body undergoes the process of aging, my body undergoes sickness, the body will also die. But there is one non-aging principle in me. Why do I call it the non-aging principle? Because do you ever feel we have got old? Very often we feel our age is only chronological. My age may be a certain number, whatever, it is only a number. But just because that number sounds big to others, it never sounds big to ourselves, because we never feel old. Because there is that non-aging conscious principle within us, that non-aging, that non-sick, that non-dying principle, which is the real me. And therefore, the more I understand, my body goes through aging, my body goes through sickness, and the body would die. But there is that non-dying eternal principle in me. And the more I am that eternal principle, the sufferings of my body or the sufferings of should not affect me, because really I am someone beyond all this. Some of these thoughts, that's why watch this couple sitting on a roller coaster. The man seems to be enjoying himself. The woman has an expression, never again I'm going to sit on it. You can see both of them are in the same situation. One is enjoying himself, the other one. So what it means is, just like Viktor Frankl observed, there were people who had a sense of humor. Although they had no food, they had suffering, people were able to make some jokes out of it. So it is not the situation primarily. It is my ability to see how I can handle the situation, my ability to relate the situation, and more importantly, to tell that, whatever the situation is, I'm going to take it positively. This situation is for my good. Normally, what do? We think very negatively. That is why it is said that a positive attitude transforms a breakdown to a breakthrough. There is a book written by a Jewish rabbi which goes like this: when bad things happen to good people, and somewhere in the book, the message is they do not become bitter, but they become better. Now, as I told you right in the beginning of the talk, that we are who we are, not because of all the good things in our life, but because of those difficult moments when people let us down, when we went through uncertainty because of disease. Somebody has so rightly said, when you win, you win. When you lose, you learn, and therefore you win. I'll repeat, when you win, you win. That is good. But when you lose, if you learn, you continue to win. Now, we are who we are because we have learned from ourselves. We have improved, we have progressed. Somebody has to mute yourself, please. Can you just mute yourself? There are people who have unmuted. Can you just check if you have unmuted? All right. Now, this is a picture of for those who know about this place. This is a mountain in the deserts of, in the deserts of Tibet. This is called Mount Kailash. Just like you have the Kaaba in the Arabian desert, this is also a solitary mountain in the deserts of Tibet. Like Kaaba, which attracts thousands of devout from all over the world, this Mount Kailash also attracts a lot of pilgrims from different parts of the world. It is extremely cold because it is in the beyond the Himalayan ranges. The temperatures are freezing. It is high altitude and you have altitude related problems, strong winds, and yet people bear all this to go around the mountain. This is what is called a parikrama. You can go on foot. It will take you 3 days through very harsh weather conditions to go. And many years ago, I had seen this picture and it was always a temptation for me to one day go there. And in my own lifetime, I had 2 opportunities to be on this very place where you can see this mountain. It is extremely magical. It's one of a very magnetic in its whole presence. And this is how it feels as you get closer to it. Before you go to the start this walk around, there is one man-made structure here, and this is called Yamadwar. Yama is the Hindu god of death, and Dwar means the doorway to the Lord of death. That means for the next 3 days, you surrender to the god of death. You subject your own life. Now, whenever we are going on a trek like this, the organizers make us to written undertaking that we are responsible. We are taking a certain risk with our lives, and I'm responsible for myself. I don't blame my organizers if something goes wrong, which means part of the preparation is not just the physical preparation, which is of course very enduring. It is also to come to terms that what happens? Am I ready to die? Am I ready to come to terms with my own death? So you will see how you'll have to have multiple layers of clothing before you start the parikrama. Let me share a little story with you. And this story is meaningful for me, and I hope it will be meaningful for you also. This was a story of a certain business person from Bangalore, and he had a chance to go to Africa. And once his business was over, he told his local host told him, just outside this town, you have a place where there are speaking parrots. Would you like to see it? He says, do you really have parrots that can speak? He says, I've never seen such a thing. And when he went there, he was amazed to see parrots actually conversing with each other. And he said, this is amazing. Nobody in India has seen anything like that. Can I get one of them? So they managed to catch one of the birds, put them in a cage. And this fellow from Africa brought it all over to India. And because this was an African bird in Bangalore, he took good care. He gave the best of nuts and fruits and kept it happy. And 2 years passed, and he had a chance to go back to Africa. And just before going, he told the bird in the cage, "I'm going back to the place where I brought you from. I'll be meeting your friends. Do you have any message for them?" So the bird told them, "Tell them I'm happy in my cage." So the man went back. He went back to the same place and he said, "2 years ago, I had taken one of your friends from here. He has a message for you. Do you know what he wants to say?" And he said, "He wants to let you know that he is happy in his cage." Listening to that, one of the birds fell down dead. So the man got very upset. He said, "Must be someone closely related to this bird." Felt very bad to hear about the news. Very with a heavy heart, he comes back to India, and he comes back to the bird and tells, "See, this is the message you gave me. I told them the same thing, and this is what happened. One of the birds fell down dead." Listening to that, the bird falls down dead within the cage. Now, very sad and depressed, he opens the cage door to take out the dead bird, and to his amazement, the bird flies off and sits on a high perch. And the man gets so angry, so upset, and he looks up at the bird and says, "See, I've taken such good care of you. Why did you do this to me?" And the bird sitting up there said, "My friend from Africa sent me a message." And so the man says, what is the message?" And so the bird replied, "If you want true freedom, you must die before you die." Please reflect on these words. If you want true freedom, you must die before you die. Sometimes it takes a long time to, and I said these are words which are very profound. We think we are free, but we are tethered from all sides. And therefore, we are so tethered to our sense of security. We are so tethered to our families, tethered to our homes, to our wealth, to our position, to our ego. And unless we cut all these knots or we loosen all these knots, it becomes extremely difficult for us to let go. And when the time comes to let go, it becomes very difficult. And therefore, if you want true freedom, you must be ready to die before you die. This is a English poet who has to say, "Sunset and the evening star, one clear call for me, and may there be no morning when I put out to bar." What does it mean? Evening time, most mosques and most places of worship, if you are in any religious place, you will see there are 2 times in the day. Essentially, the whole house will congregate both morning and evening at the time of prayer. So it is said during sunset and sunrise and sunset, that is the time when there is a shift in the day. According to the Hindus, they call it Sandhya. Sandhya means twilight. The Muslims do it more often, at least 5 times a day. Now, 5 times a day, they take an opportunity. And whenever you take an opportunity to come to prayer, and there is a particular evening prayer, there is a very powerful evening prayer. Every morning, you prepare for a new day as if it is birth. Every evening, you assume that you might die today. So in a way, you're born every day, you die every day. Mentally, you go through the process, "Oh, today I'm alive. I have another day. And as my day is done, I thank God for the day. And I'm ready to go in case He's ready to take me." The more I'm mentally prepared to die each day, it will sort of prepare us for when the time comes for us to go. So if I can summarize a few points, how do we handle the breakdown to a breakthrough? As I said, we need to be inspired. And how do we be inspired? Through the attitude of gratitude. Those who count your blessings, "I'm so lucky that I can do this," you're always going to be a happy person. The next is, as long as there is life, as long as there is health in my body, let me make it 100%. Let me be able to discover meaning. Let me be able to discover purpose. This is a nice YouTube talk by David Rast, who asks this question: Are happy people grateful, or is it grateful people happy? The answer always is grateful people are happy. Whenever you are grateful, you are happy. And what do we want in life? We want to be happy. And therefore, the shortcut to happiness is gratefulness. Uh, what is a gift? A gift is something that has been given to us free, and a gift is something that is extremely valuable. And he makes you analyze what is that great gift all of us have all the time, but we take it for granted. I want you to think again. What is that great gift all of us have, but we tend to take it for granted? And it is the gift of my life in this moment. He brings this point in this moment. You know, the life that has passed or the life that is going to come is meaningless if I'm not ready to live life in this moment. Real life is life in this moment. If I can learn to live life in this moment, because every moment life is a gift to be able to cherish, to be able to enjoy. And if you're able to do so, you have a grateful heart. And this is a song of a grateful heart, which goes like this. I have never made a fortune, and it is probably too late now. I don't worry about that much. I'm happy anyhow. And as I go along life's ways, I'm reaping better than I sowed. I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. I'll repeat the last line again because it is so beautiful. As I go along life's ways, I'm reaping better than I sowed. I'm drinking from my saucer because my cup has overflowed. This is a nursery rhyme, but I want you to see how relevant it is even today. And the song goes like this. And if you can answer this question for me, the time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. The way to be happy is to make others happy and to create a heaven right here. I will repeat. The time to be happy is now. The place to be happy is here. The way to be happy is to make others happy and to create a heaven right here. So, what is the purpose of our life? What are we here for? There is one of the Upanishads called the Kathopanishad. In the Kathopanishad, it is said that all of us have got 3 debts. It is called Pitrarina, Lokarina, and Acharyarina. The first debt is to my parents. And how do we fulfill the debt to our parents? It is impossible to repay to our parents what they have done to us. But the Upanishad says if you can live your life in such a way that others are able to say how blessed your parents are, that they have a son or a daughter like you, then you fulfill Pitrarina. The second is called Lokarina. How do you fulfill Lokarina? If you're able to give more to the community than what you have got, you fulfill debt number 2. And the third and the most difficult debt is called Acharyarina, the debt to yourself. We are here not just to, this is a great gift to be born as a human being. And as you are a human being, you're here to understand what God is and to be able to understand what godliness is. And that is when you attain to your fullest potential. Certain books that I would recommend, a book by Hermann Hesse. He won the Nobel Prize for this book called Siddhartha. And Siddhartha represents mental toughness, a person who can be extremely strong. And part of mental toughness is the ability to fast, the ability to wait. He had 2 abilities. He said, I can fast for how long? Indefinitely. I can go on fasting. I can, I have trained myself to be without food and water for an indefinite period of time. So this is, and the second is I can wait. If I want something, I'm so patient, I can wait till eternity. Normally, whenever you are hungry, normally when you want something done, you are in such a hurry that you create a lot of unpleasantness to others. But if you have the mental training, 2 things, and that is what I have learned from this book. I can fast, I can wait. And these are the prerequisites for mental toughness. And this brings about, part of it is physical fitness and mental fitness also, fitness and flexibility. I will give you an example what I see in my hospital scenario. Here is a little boy waiting for his turn to undergo his operation. The boy has no idea that today is his day for his operation. As long as he's with his mother, he's fine. when we have to take him to the operating room, is he going to come willingly with us? He is not going to do so. The boy is going to cry bitterly because the boy thinks that taking him to the operating room is an experience of suffering. The little child, because his brain, after all, is a small child, has no idea that he is being taken to the operating room for a therapeutic purpose. He's going to be cured of a disease. His mother is subjecting him to a procedure so that he's cured. Now, in difficult situations, we are like the small children. We are not able to see the whole picture. And because we are not able to see the whole picture, we have some internal dialogue like, God, why are you subjecting me to all this? Why are you putting me through so much suffering? Is there a God? Why is life meaningless? And so on. Albert Einstein, who has written in his autobiographical works, when I started my scientific work, I was confident I could demystify the universe. And he says, today in the evening of my life, one thing is very clear. The mystery has only deepened. He said, the more you know, the more you realize how little I know. These were his last words, which go like this. The deeper I went into existence, the more the mystery deepened. I'm dying full of wonder. I'm dying in wonder. Finally, what really helps when you have done all that you can do, you can log on to prayer power. There is nothing like prayer power because whenever you are in prayer, you come to terms with the reality of the situation. The picture that you are seeing is a scene in Jerusalem where you see a holy place for three religions. The big wall that you see is the Western Wall, which is the holiest place for the Jews. The Golden Dome is the third holiest place for the Muslims. It is called the Al-Aqsa Mosque. After Mecca and Medina, this is the next holiest place for Muslims in Jerusalem. And the steeple that you see, the tall steeple, which has gone beyond the frame, that is in the position where Jesus was crucified in Jerusalem, the church where, so you can see all three in one frame itself. And through all these three religions, what is the prayer that is very, very meaningful in moments of difficulty? And the prayer, if I can say, the greatest prayer that comes from all the three Brahminical religions is this, the word yes. Different languages turn it differently. The Muslims call it inshallah, the will of the Lord. Jesus in the Lord's Prayer has said, thy will be done. This is Dag Hammarskjöld, the Swedish economist, Nobel Prize winner, Secretary General of the United Nations. And he had something nice to say about handling all difficult moments. And this is his prayer. He says, for all that has been, thank you, especially for all the difficulties in my life. Have the courage to say thank you for all the difficult moments that have made me a stronger person. So for all the past, thank you. What about the future? For all that shall be, his prayer is yes. So I will repeat, for all that has been, thanks, and for all that shall be, yes. I'll conclude with a nice prayer from Tagore, which goes like this. Let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless in facing them. Let me not beg for the stilling of my pain, but for the heart to conquer it. Let me not look for allies in life's battlefield, but to my own strength. Grant that I may not be a coward, feeling your mercy in my successes alone, but let me find the grasp of your hand in my failure. How to be mentally tough and yet flexible. This is a prayer from the Alcoholic Anonymous group. Why I'm saying this? Because the rest of my talk seem to say, accept, come to terms. It's like your fate, but this is not so. God helps those who help themselves. So the prayer goes like this. Grant me the serenity to accept things that I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'll repeat, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you very much. We can have some time for discussion.
Thank you, Doctor, for this wonderful presentation. Now it's open for the group to have interaction. You can ask any questions if you have any, or if you want to make any observation or any comments. It is open. We have some time. Please, yes. You can put on your video. I think there should not be a problem. It's nice to see your faces. Whoever can put on your video and present yourself still better.
See, this, as I said, it's open for discussion, not necessarily for questions. I would rather, from your own experience, say what life has taught me and how I would handle myself or handle someone who's going through difficulty, and what is my answer for the meaning for suffering. Is God fair? Is God unfair?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
This is Subhash in Bangalore.
Yes, Subhash.
Sir, I have in my gone through like some period of time, especially in this COVID period of 6 months. I'm almost so I found in my entire life one theory which I believe is this acceptance.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
So my concern is that all the adverse situation which we are going through, should we need to accept or there's a purpose behind this kind of suffering? Is it something connected to our in Hindu philosophy is called like a karmic account, or should we need to simply accept what has happened, or should we need to accept that this is a part of my karmic account, or there will be a purpose behind that which we are suffering, or what? Can you just stretch on this?
Very good question, Subhash. I will leave it for everyone to share, because all of us can share our inputs on what Subhash has says. Should we passively accept it? How do we handle a situation like a pandemic? Or we have a lot of people who can answer this, please. Mr. Bhatia?
I would like to say, first thing is what you said, that inshallah, thy will and other things. And in our tradition also we say, Tera bhana, mitha lage, annam padarth nanak mange. This is the saying from Guru Arjan Dev Ji when he was put on a hot plate. There was a suffering, but still he saw that a great strength in that. And even Dr. Kabir in Guru Granth Sahib says that, okay, Pehla maran kabul, jeevan ke chade aas tu aao hamare paas. If you want to come to the right path, you have to first accept that you are no more, and then only you can get a new life and this one. Those things are there. This one. Coming to his point, what he says is whether we should accept the suffering as a passive. Definitely not. It should be actively. We should accept the suffering so that we can get energized and get from the internal source, whatever place we are having with reference to our religious traditions and the faith, we will definitely be empowered to combat that analysis. It should not, nothing should be accepted as a passive this one. We should be a part of it as an active participation in that. That's what I feel that is the answer for his question or this one. And how active? That this comes from our faith and our this one, and have a so-called undoubted our surrendering to the will and the commandment. Accept that and then look forward from him with our prayers that give us the strength to come back that. Suffering should be taken as a boon, as a test from the God side that we can shine out.
Father Gerald, what would your thoughts be, Father?
I'm also a little confused about this. I'm not very sure now. We'll have to make a little distinction between unavoidable suffering and human-made suffering. If we go saying like, let's say, Viktor Frankl's example is definitely good, but are we passively say, yeah, I discover my freedom in with any odd situation, or we'll say, no, we'll have to fight against this. Whether my spirituality will make me passive or internalize the suffering, which is the structural suffering, I mean, through human structures that are coming. I think this distinction, if you do not make, perhaps we will be, I don't know whether we'll be ending up in uh, internalizing that suffering or over spiritualizing the suffering, which need not be, because many sufferings are human made and they are imposed on other human beings. I think we can avoid, and maybe we need to speak, which are unavoidable. We have to go through. It's true.
Not only what you say, human made, we have to see what is the intention behind. If the intentions are wrong, we must fight it back. We should take sword in our hand. We should fight it back, because that also is your social responsibility. Regarding if it is done, even if it is harmful, but it is unintentional, we should take a measure to set it right by first, whatever means we can use it, by internalizing or any other source. But moment we are very convinced that it is a intentional and is man-made and it is for the benefit of an individual, this one, we have to raise our voice, we have to fight against that and try to set it right. Because as a human being, we don't have only the spiritual aspect of our life, we have also a commitment towards the society and towards us also. So we should take in that spirit.
Vivekananda Swami has told that you are the creator of your own destiny.
Yeah.
So there is suffering. Actually, there is no blame game of our suffering. Sufferings are we only made, like our destiny, and suffering is human made and we self-made. In so when we have some problem, normally whether if you deep go into the spirituality, whatever the suffering we are going through, this pandemic and whatever, it is you made it, Subhash. You chosen it. Everything is been chosen. Your parents you chosen. Your friend you have chosen. Everything is chosen. And that people and this whatever suffering which is undergoing, you chosen it in.
Subhash, you have not chosen your parents. We have not chosen a pandemic. These have been imposed on us. And that is why Father Eugene is also here. The question sometimes comes is God fair? How does a good God allow us so much suffering? Subhash, I am sorry to interrupt you. What you rightly said about Swami Vivekananda is true, but you still see a lot of unfairness in this world. You see that, like I have not chosen my parents. We are lucky to get good families. We are getting, where you could get education, you get support. But what about the families that come, under a flyover, they're born in the street, they have no hopes for education. You see so much of disparity in front of your eyes all the time. Some people with so much money, there are some people who don't have food, don't have clothing. Father Eugene or anybody else who would like to pitch in.
Great philosophers or Vedic gurus who are telling it is kind of connected with the prarabdha karma, which I do not know whatever, because I have so much of gurus, but they are telling the people are the slum. See, everybody cannot become rich. Everybody cannot become a cobbler. Everybody cannot become a poor. So that is it different kind of people in the world. It's all been either be kind of chosen to be, or supposed to be, or bound to be, or it is all related with these karmas which he has he has attained. Whether it is because the people in the group, many are with different religion, but since I'm Hindu, is that there are different types of karmas like Sanjita karma, Prarabdha karma, Agami karma, different karma make us the people. I'm supposed to live in a particular parents, I'm supposed to get born in a particular parents. And I read one of the book called You Can Heal Your Soul. In that book, it is mentioned that you are choosing your parents and you are choosing your everything. It's all because of this frequency or related the karmic account which you are connecting with the bound to be born in particular place. So it could be, see, I have empathy and sympathy for people in the like slum area and everything, but it's all they created it in a way that wisdom goes like that.
Poor create their own destiny. Okay, it's a little difficult. Father Eugene, are you there?
You?
Father Eugene. Wants.
Yeah, he's there. He's muted himself. Father Lobo?
Yes, I'm here. What happened?
No. Would you want to join the discussion about, how a fair God can allow so much suffering? We were having, one Subhash brought in the karmic theory. The karmic theory, maybe some Hindus can accept this. It may not be acceptable for everybody, that I am a product of my karma. And because if I have done good karma, I get a good birth. If I have done bad karma, I'm supposed to suffer. But what would your thoughts be? How would a good God allow so much suffering, Father?
It's a difficult question to answer. In fact, when I give retreats, I get this question very often. Why am I suffering? And how am I to give answer to suffering to others? Now, I'm dealing with most education people and in the institutions. That is where the teachers or the principals would say, why suffering? Why me? Why I have been chosen? And see, the answer, what often we give is God wills it. God wants us to go through it. And everything ends with something good. It's a good or bad. There is a joy in at the end. Even when somebody dies, with those who are close to us. Even when my mother died, I felt very much. But afterwards thought maybe it was better that way it happened. Otherwise, maybe it would have gone worse. It would have been bedridden and would have gone terrible situation. So they always I see it in a positive way, the suffering, and I encourage people, accept it, that God is doing this for our good. The suffering is needed. Maybe it makes us grow. Spiritually, it purifies the suffering. That is where I see it. Maybe many may not accept what I say, but there is that spiritual aspect of it, which God purifies us through suffering and brings us closer to Him. In the suffering, I accept God, that He is the one who is touching me and He's the one bringing me closer to Him. That is where I see it.
If you go very deep in Aham Brahmasmi, and when we are a blame game of God, God has done good thing to me. Why God has given this one? Why? See, we are good parents. Why this hell? I'm getting this kind of children. I don't know what karma I have done. See, when we are talking about God, a good thing favoring to God and cursing to God, first of all, understand we are Aham Brahmasmi. We are the Brahman. And we are a part of Brahman. When you're taking tumbler of water from the glass from the ocean, only the shape differs. Ocean water and this water same. So Aham Brahmasmi, we are part of Brahman. Then when I am a part of it, where is the blame game or it is a good thing as done by everything is we created, but God, of course, He has given a willpower to us. When He has given so much of karmika, He has given 10% of willpower also to us to ask, sir told me that we have to conquer. Conquer is that take your willpower and work against that. This is what I'm telling. Aham Brahmasmi means that we are not separate and God is separate. We are part of it. Like in Christianity, it's like appam and wine. So both are flesh and blood. So we are not different from God. We are part of it. Then there is no need of telling that He is separate, I am separate.
This is Jasbir Singh
Yeah.
Dodi from Singh Sabha. I just want to give my 2 bit about spirituality and suffering. There's a very popular quote which says, कि दुख में सिमरन सब करे, सुख में करे ना कोई. सुख में सिमरन जो करे, दुख काहे को होए. Meaning that very often we attach spirituality only when we are suffering. But if we are spiritual even when we are in good times, then when bad times come, it's not that our spirituality gets shaken up. The other thing in life I have found from my experience is that when something happens to us, we should stop regarding us as a victim. When you have this, mentality that I'm a victim of this, I'm a victim of that, then many times what happens, you internalize your suffering. So not being a victim, but accepting the fact that what we talked about karma is a better way of looking at it rather than regarding yourself as a victim. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, I'm Mrs. Bhatia. I agree with what Todi Sahab also says about this one, and earlier this one regarding the karma, this one also. See, we have to take it with our spiritual background. This is the opportunity God has given us in the form of suffering. It is examination. Until unless we write the exam and pass it, we don't get degree. Right? Until unless we go through the suffering, we cannot really come to suffering. What basically required to do is, based upon the karma, we might have got the suffering, there is no doubt about it. We believe in that part of the Hindu philosophy, but there is also a way in this suffering also, if we take this also is a gift from God, then it will be other way around because our whole attitude will change and we'll ask in prayers and look for the grace from God and power from the God. We have to remain, get connected with Him to combat this. And then when we do that, it is only there is no suffering left. Suffering automatically goes. If you see the all around the world, all the people, most of the people whom we take, tell them they are very good and they're excellent and they have done a lot of work and other, look at the sufferings they had. Lord Jesus, you see, when he was crucified, even at that stage, he was trying to say, forgive them. God, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Guru Arjan is sitting on the hot plate. His hot sand was being poured on his head. Underneath the fire was there. Even then he can sing, Tera Bhana Meetha Lage. So this is the attitudinal change with the basis which is once again is coming. So there is no question of blaming anybody else. It is how we take it that is more important rather than really it suffers. Who is getting suffered? Body, mind. So these are need to be controlled and get ourselves empowered with our spiritual backgrounds, our religious backgrounds, our work, and take lessons from the people who are really suffered and shined later on. That's how we have to take it. Thank you.
Dr. Hegde, I just wanted to ask you this question now, being a doctor and a surgeon, you must have noticed many patients recovering. Now, people may, do you notice those who have got a positive approach for suffering or perhaps high power of goodwill, they recover faster, and those who have negative approach to life, do they recover later? What do you have to say in this line? I mean, looking at medically, this whole attitudinal issue.
Yes, Father. We spend a lot of time with people before they undergo surgery, because before they actually subject their heads and they surrender themselves, we have to spend a lot of time to be able to empower them. And then I see two categories of people. One is a person who is that doubting Thomas category, who have hundreds of internet related questions and they have this doubt and that doubt and that doubt. And I find those people extremely difficult because there are so much doubts. And the more you clarify, more doubts come. And then I find that it is impossible. Finally, I have to tell them, see, it is only a matter of trust. If you are able to trust, only then this deal will go through. Otherwise, if you have that doubt in your mind, it is impossible for us to have a deal together. This deal of going through a major surgery is possible only when you come from 100% trust that, I'm going through a process. I trust what you're going to do. Only when they come to that level, then we are able to enter into a useful relationship. We are able to explain, go through. Otherwise, if a person has got a slightest doubt in their head, my God, this doubt can be so damaging, they will not be able to. So our whole process is to move from the intellectual process, because intellectually, it is impossible to convince a person to undergo surgery because there are always risks. They may not only lose function, they may lose their life also. But a moment when they come to the heart, that is what Father Eugene spoke about, being a devotee. See, when you trust God, whole scenario changes. The whole question is, are you able to trust? If you're able to trust, then suddenly all the questions disappear. And then your level of acceptance, see, suddenly you will see the person is a changed person. Now there is a smile on the face, anxiety level is less, no more questions, and they come to terms, they come to a level of acceptance. So what I really do is engage them in a dialogue, allow them to get all the intellect questions, initially go through this dialogue for some time. Then you realize that this dialogue is never ending dialogue. For each question you answer, 100 new questions come. And then the final question is there trust in your heart or not? Are you able to trust? Are you able to trust God? Are you able to trust the surgical team? If you're able to do so, then we work together.
Hegde, Doctor, you are amazing. Like you are rightly said all the words. Like the more you got faith on God or the higher power, because knowingly, unknowingly, there is some mystic power. There is a mystic power governing us. So once we trust on that mystic power, super conscious intelligence, then everything is true. Then everything will be, it will fall in places. So the faith and trust is very important.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions? Anybody else have to say anything? Because only few of us are interacting. If anybody else has got a question? Yes.
I want to add something, Father.
Yes, yes.
Janakiram.
Please go ahead.
See, as Dr. Hegde covered and all of you said, we have to have total implicit faith and trust, derive inspiration from the life of prophets. All the prophets have suffered. That means if you have to spread the God's word and fight the evil, you have to suffer. It's very clear. But in that kind of situation, compared to what they went through, our suffering is nothing at all. It is totally insignificant. So if we take from Hinduism, Pandavas suffered all through their life. Rama, even though he was an incarnation of God, he completely had to go to forests. Fortunately, none of us are placed in that kind of a situation. So as Dr. Hegde mentioned, it's a question of choosing our attitude and what kind of belief you have, whether you derive inspiration and faith from karma or grace of God or thy will be done or inshallah or simply yes. I think it is up to us to choose. That is what I feel and that is what I have followed in my life. And I have come across many people who have also suffered and who have faced situations very bravely. So I can even quote one instance where one of my secretaries had an unfortunate domestic fire accident in the house while cooking. But I have never seen anybody so bravely putting up through that horrendous episode she went through, and now she is quite happy and she has become a mother also. She married the person whom she loved and they are living a good life. So we can also think of like Helen Keller. I can't even imagine how a person like Helen Keller was able to live and set such a beautiful role model for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mohan, your hand is up.
Yes, sir. So, Mohan, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sir, this is about, this is acceptance, 100%, that then I think there won't be any problem. Once you accept whatever that is coming in one's life, so without questioning, just go with the whatever that has come as a gift of from higher power. So then the things will settle down and so on. So if we go on trying to find a root of everything, we will not able to get it. So better to accept things as they are. Then the life like drama, no, already the play is there. We are only acting. We are enacting the play in everyday's life. I think yes, that's what I want to convey, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your opinion. Anybody else? Any new voice? Oh, I think Dr. Hegde, last.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only last word is Subhash, if you can share your sandwiches with everybody. You seem to have.
I'm sorry.
So,
No.
so we are discussing, a nice suffering and good eating also at the same time.
Hegde sir, now what is happening most of the webinar, even on the technical side, first agenda will put
It is nice that we had a good discussion around.
we say networking and tea at home. So same way we can we can all join together for
No, certainly this pandemic has brought us together in different ways,
Yeah, very different.
See, for many people, traveling, coming up is a big thing. Now you don't have to worry about travel, but still you can have a quality meeting Of course, there is a big difference when there is a personal fellowship that is missing right now.
Yeah.
But the essence, I mean, if you want an intense prayer, exchange of ideas, everything is possible. So while the pandemic has hit many people in many ways, it has changed our lives in so many ways. For the first time, we've got a lot of time for ourselves, a lot of time to reflect, a lot of time to read, and so on.
Doctor,
yeah.
last but the least, since I'm a Hindu from Hindu family, the bhakti, we call in Hindu bhakti, other religion, all are, it's a bhakti only. Bhakti is a Sanskrit word. Bhakti comes in 5 forms. Arti, Artharthi, Jitnyasu, Jnani, Rishi, Muni, and Yogi. So, our different level of bhakti, prema, when we become more elevated, our Arti Bhakti means when we are asking God, can you give me, God, please give me. That is Arti Bhakti.
No, be specific in your question. Don't tell us, what is your question?
No, I'm talking about when we are, see, what is my understanding, when we attain our Gyan and knowledge more, suffering will be less.
Certainly.
Our concern of our life is that attain our Gyan and knowledge more, then naturally suffering will be less.
Certainly. See, as Father Eugene Lobo said, all of us are here for one reason. We all believe in God. We all believe in the power of God. We all believe. And if you are the highest form of a bhakta, Artha, Artharthi, Jignasi, there you something called a Jnani Bhakti. A Jnani Bhakti is called a Parama Bhakta. A
Yes.
Parama Bhakta is one who in the presence of Bhagwan, you cease to exist. You are a nobody. So when you totally surrender to the Lord, then one of the easiest things is thy will be done. Inshallah, to accept whatever you go through, like prasada, you accept it as a purification process, you accept it cheerfully. There is zero complaints. You will go through, you will not even call it a suffering, you will call it a whole spiritual exercise. So that is our whole, I think I would take it as a message for myself, that can we be Parama Bhaktas? Can I be a Bhakta of the highest order, that my only prayer is thy will be done? And a good God is one who you don't have to bother him with whatever you can do. If you're feeling cold, put on a warmer and keep yourself warm. I mean, don't go for God for mundane things. Whatever humanly you can do, whatever fight you can do for justice, please do so. But whatever you have tried everything and you have not succeeded, that is where you become a Parama Bhakta and you accept the will of the Lord. Father Gerald?
Yeah, thank you, Doctor, for this your input, facilitating this interaction section as well. Finally, I would like to say this topic or the theme, I think we do not have the final answers or the complete answers. We are in search. We look at this whole aspect of suffering from various perspectives. We look at it from a spiritual dimension. We also look at from social dimension. We also look at from a kind of a transformational dimension, how we can transform this suffering into a kind of a happy experience. I think we'll have to look at from all that point of view. And second aspect that has come very strongly is in no way we can justify suffering or we can accept suffering. I mean, we need not have suffering. I mean, suffering in itself does not make any meaning. But there is always a meaning in encountering it is positively without harming ourselves, and we can go beyond our suffering. I think that is the message that we have been getting today with this talk and our interaction. Let us keep our thinking around this and reflection around this theme going. So therefore, I would like to thank you on behalf of IRHM group here. And also I would like to request you to continue to guide us and be part of our IRHM. And also we wish you all the best in your busy schedule and keep guiding people and inspiring people. Dr. Hegde, thank you very much.